I was driving home for Thanksgiving a few years back, and I saw the most strangest thing I have ever seen coming off the side of the highway. I'll admit that I had been driving for several hours, but I have never just randomly imagined seeing some weird thing by the side of the road before, no matter how little sleep I had. So, I'm like 99% certain that I did indeed see something. I just don't have a clue as to what exactly it was. At first, when I caught sight of something moving alongside the trees beside me down this long road, I just assumed it was any number of creatures that lived around there. Most likely a fairly large deer. It did put me on high alert. You don't want to run into something of that size, especially considering it can completely total your car. I was also trying to maintain composure and not freak out. Just trying to be very aware that something was indeed there. I didn't want it to shoot out in front of me and cause an accident. I also slowed down just a bit in case. It wasn't nighttime, but it was getting dark, since it was late November and late afternoon. Add in the tree coverage, and it seemed like a good idea to put the headlights on. I don't know whether that alarmed the animal, but for a short time, it ceased to follow, or so I thought. After just a couple of miles, I could sense movement alongside the car. It really did feel as if something was following, and somehow managing to keep up. Sure, I had slowed down, but I was still easily pushing 40 miles an hour, which is a lot for any animal to maintain. Then, it appeared to shoot off in front of the car, but still in the trees along the side of the road, so that I could see movement in them in front of me. I kept thinking again that it must be pretty big, trying to recall if a large buck can move that fast. And then I suddenly had to ram my foot on the brake as hard as possible. And thank you that I reduced my speed as it shot out of the trees and in front of the car, then stopped in the middle of the road, right in front of me. Have you ever seen those moments in the movies where cars have to slam on their brakes and come to a skidding halt? Well, that's exactly what I did. And because I had my lights on, I was now right up close, and I could clearly see it was no buck or doe, or for that matter, anything that I'd ever seen before. It had scampered out onto the road on all fours, like you would expect, and sat there. That was right in front of me. My car had stopped. In the beam of my headlights, it stood up on two legs. As it rose up to its full height, I could see it had a sort of body like a human, at least what resembled one, except it was covered in grayish, disgusting, scaly dead skin, and it was really, really skinny, scrawny. It made me think of one of those Holocaust survivor pictures, malnourished and starving looking. Underneath that weird, almost reptilian dead skin, I could see its ribs jutting out. The legs were incredibly long and skinny, but you could see small tints of muscle. They kind of reminded me of a picture you might find in a biology book when you're looking for that muscular and skeletal makeup of a body. That's what came to my mind. It appeared to have weird arms too, which it held up near its face, almost in a defensive stance. Rising from somewhere on its back again, they were only now visible, close-up bipedal position, were these two very delicate-looking wings that kind of had a weird glow to them, only because my headlights were hitting them. They didn't look like they could use to fly, though, or support the size or weight. It was just a strange-looking chimera, might I say. And the head was the weirdest. If you thought this thing sounded weird so far, it had a very weird humanoid face, but I can't really describe it. I didn't see a mouth or nose, just two huge empty eyes where the eyes should be. Just two massive big black holes. I'm not sure how long we would stay there if I hadn't been honking the horn and somebody didn't come from behind. I checked my mirror, and there was a large truck heading down the road behind me, which I thought was unusual, because this road really isn't meant for truckers. When I quickly looked back at front, I saw the thing lifting up into the air and jumping back into the trees. I moved as fast as I could, letting the truck semi-fly past me, which it did, so I then sat there for a good 10 seconds or so before I felt calm enough to fly off the road. What just happened? What did I see? I've heard of crypto sightings myself, but never could I have imagined something like this. By the way, sorry for the story and the writing. I'm not a great writer by any means, but I felt it was important to get my details out, and I wrote this up on my phone, so hopefully you can understand it. Feel free to ask me any questions. Whatever this was scares me. My old middle school was one of those buildings that in the day it was constructed to look grand and institutional, but looking back, it kind of reminded me of a prison, or maybe a medieval fortress. It was built to last, constructed of brick, and it had been in service for so long, everybody was kind of surprised when it suddenly had to close its doors. If I remember right, something about asbestos, but I don't think anybody really believed the excuses. And so the place sat empty for a very long time, up until one of my friends dropped in on me much later in my life. We ended up reminiscing about our school days, and I didn't have anything to look back on. He seemed to think those were all of awkward years. Then, he talked about the middle school, but he was too worked up to accept a no for an answer and asking me if I wanted to go. My friend and I didn't even give the consideration of the time and day. But it was when we were in the dark parking lot, and my friend was pulling a grappling hook out of the trunk of his car. I began to wonder if my friend was even all there. There was just something wrong with the way he was carrying himself, with the way he was talking, and with what he was planning on doing. He proudly showed me the rope attached to the hook. He swung the hook like a lasso and then let it fly up into the air. It attached to one of the walls very snugly. He volunteered to climb first. He made it up about 6 or 7 feet before he dropped back down. He then encouraged me to try. I wasn't going to. I knew that somebody there would see me and get enough details to report me to the police. We tried to get the grappling hook back down, but it had worked its way far too snugly. So my friend just threw up his arms and said that we just leave it there. That made the entire prospect of climbing the wall a preferable outcome. It wasn't easy, of course, to scale the wall. I didn't exactly stay in shape, but I gradually inched my way to the top, and I did everything in my power to not look down. The first heart attack I had came when I saw what appeared to be a large stone gargoyle that I had not known was ever up there. It had been hidden by the edge of the wall all those years. I held onto the rope of the hook with an iron grip and took a moment for my breathing to return to normal. The second jump of mine came when this creature appeared to open its eyes, which were lit up like 2 glowing rubies, and they were lit up with light of, dare I say, imprisoned souls. That's when it moved to my horror, reached down, grabbed the hook, dislodged it, and sent me falling towards the ground. I only broke my leg and part of my hip, and we're both lucky we didn't go to jail. But I could assure you, I never went back around there again, and it freaked me the hell out. What exactly that creature was, I don't know, because after I fell and was able to look back up and see what had exactly happened, the shape, or whatever figure I thought was a gargoyle, was completely gone. Even though it was complete black and resembled that of one, maybe it wasn't. What exactly did I see while I was up there? Is there a reason it was there? Possibly because the school was abandoned, but I'll never know for sure.